right. You're absolutely right. Okay, so Jack, you brought this up very briefly a couple questions ago, but Lynch doubled down in an interview with Chris Collinsworth. He talked about a lot, quite frankly, but the thing that stood out most to me is that he said when they were leaving the Justin Fields pro day, that on the way home on the private jet, Shanahan was drawing up plays. And when he asked him what he was doing, he said he was drawing up plays with Trey Lance in mind. So, do we think that the more that these things come out, not that it necessarily matters, but it's something to talk about. Do we think that Lance was the guy from the get-go? I mean,
I don't think Lance was the guy from the get-go. And
okay.
the reason I'm saying that is because when they went to the Zach Wilson pro day, they made that trade. They didn't make the trade. They were first when the Zach Wilson pro day, and they made that trade that day. I remember that day because I was doing a test, and I got the news that they traded up for a pick, and I was like, super happy. But they didn't trade up. Trey Lance wasn't the guy from the get-go. I remember in January, they said Jimmy's their guy. So Trey Lance wasn't the guy from the get-go. They didn't go to Trey Lance's pro day and make that trade. They went to Zach Wilson's pro day, and they made that trade. And they went to, I think they went to Matt Jones' pro day and Justin Fields' pro day before they went to Trey Lance's pro day. So they went to both of those guys' pro days before they went to Trey Lance's pro days. So Trey Lance wasn't the guy from the get-go. Jimmy was their guy in January, and they went to Zach Wilson and Matt Jones and Justin Fields' pro day before they went to Trey Lance's pro day, if I remember correctly. So Trey Lance wasn't the guy from the beginning. I think they went to Trey Lance's pro day, and he saw something in him, and they drafted Trey Lance. But he wasn't the guy from the get-go. I think Zach Wilson was the guy from the get-go.
Hey, Amin, will you do me a favor?
Yep.
Will you hit Cam and Mike and go to audio and turn off the automatically adjust mic volume and turn that all the way up? Some people in the chat are saying that it's they're having trouble hearing you. I hear you fine, but they're saying it's low on their end.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yep. I hear you. It is a little louder for sure. Okay. All right. So Jack, what about you? Do you feel like Lance was the guy from jump, or do you think this is kind of just to snow everybody? Where are you at with it?
Well, my first question, though, I got a question for me. Did you pass that test?
Yes, I did pass that test.
Good. No, going back to the question, I don't know if he was necessary, if I really buy the fact that he was the guy from the get-go, but I do think that he was one of the three that they had available. I think they were part of the deal with them making that trade and jumping up to where they wanted to jump to was because it allowed them to control the process. And Lynch talked about that as part of that interview yesterday. He had mentioned how they had asked to they'd gone to, I don't think they went to Jacksonville, but they went to the Jets briefly. And then they had a good conversation with the Dolphins, and then they checked with the Falcons and whoever's at number 5. But the one that the Dolphins was the one that gave them the best deal, really. Or like they wanted to go make something happen. So that's why they went with that one. But I really think they wanted to control the process. It doesn't make sense to me totally that they'd be leaving the Justin Fields pro day drawing up plays for Trey Lance when Trey Lance hadn't been seen yet, even if they really liked him, but who knows, maybe, this is one of those things where we're never going to know the truth. Well, unless we just want to go ahead and believe John Lynch, which after listening to that interview and listening to him recall his time at Stanford kind of makes me want to believe him. The deal's done. That's who they got. How they got there, that should be a 30 for 30 in about 10 years if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I agree. That'd be a heck of a 30 for 30. I actually do believe him. And the reason is because if you listen to that interview, first of all, if you listen to the first interview when they were talking about it, he said that Shanahan was in Mexico and he'd sent him some film and he was up till 2 a.m. watching it. Well, when he did that interview with Collinsworth, he actually corrected himself. He said, at first my time was a little off. The timeline was still right, but I think he was actually at home in San Diego. He wasn't in Mexico. So for him to say that, there's no reason, nobody knew where he was at the time that you got this film. So for you to change a detail like that and say, oh, you know what, I had it wrong the first time. It was actually he was in San Diego. That tells me that you're not lying about this. Now, it doesn't mean that he was the only guy because he also said that they kicked the tires on everybody. But I do believe that he was the main guy from get-go, and they felt like they couldn't get him at 12, which they did say that. And if you believe all the rumors, the Falcons were possibly interested in Lance. The Panthers definitely were interested in Lance. So yeah, they knew they couldn't get him at 12. And as soon as they made that trade up to 3, what did the Panthers do? They went right away and they traded for Darnold. And I believe that's because they knew, hey, Lance is not going to make it anymore. The 49ers just moved up to 3. Lance is not going to make it. We're out. Let's move on. So I do believe it. Not that it matters. Again, he's the guy now. It is what it is. But it was an interesting interview. And I would say just for the Stanford piece of it and really the back and forth with Collinsworth, if you haven't heard the interview, I highly recommend it. It was a fantastic interview. There was a lot of little things that I took away back in his Stanford days when they played Notre Dame. He talked about having to hit Jerome Bettis. Like, there was a lot of cool things that came out of that interview. So I would check it out. All right.